Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to start with something that might sound a little strange at first. Your stomach problems might not actually be about your stomach. I know that sounds counterintuitive. When your digestion is off, when you're bloated or cramping or running to the bathroom at the worst possible moments, your instinct is to look at what you ate. And yes, food matters enormously. But what if I told you that the real story is bigger, older, and far more connected than most of us realize? Let me explain what I mean. For most of medical history, the gut was considered a relatively simple system. It digested food, absorbed nutrients, eliminated waste, mechanical, predictable. But over the last 2 decades, research has completely rewritten that understanding. Scientists now describe the gut as a second brain, and that's not a metaphor used lightly. The enteric nervous system, which lines your entire gastrointestinal tract, contains somewhere between 100 and 500 million nerve cells. That's more than your spinal cord. Your gut doesn't just process food, it processes information. According to research in the field of neurogastroenterology, the gut and brain are in constant, bidirectional conversation through what's called the gut-brain axis. Signals travel both ways, from brain to gut, and from gut to brain. In fact, studies have shown that approximately 90% of the signals traveling along the vagus nerve, the main communication line between these two systems, go from the gut up to the brain, not the other way around. Your gut is not just receiving orders, it's sending them. This changes everything about how we should think about digestive symptoms. I want to share something that a study published in a leading gastroenterology journal examined a few years ago. Researchers followed a group of young adults with irritable bowel syndrome and found that a significant proportion also reported symptoms of anxiety and depression, not as a consequence of their gut problems, but in a pattern that suggested the relationship ran in both directions. Think of it like this. Imagine your gut lining as a highly sensitive filter, like the screen on a window. When the screen is intact, it lets in the air and keeps out the insects. But when the mesh starts to tear, things get through that shouldn't. Bacteria, undigested food particles, inflammatory compounds, they begin crossing into the bloodstream. Your immune system, now on high alert, starts firing. And that immune response doesn't stay local. It travels. It shows up as fatigue, as skin flares, as joint discomfort, as brain fog that makes you feel like you're thinking through wet concrete. Researchers studying intestinal permeability have linked increased gut leakiness to a range of conditions that, on the surface, seem to have nothing to do with digestion. This is why I keep coming back to nutrition, not as a cosmetic fix, but as a foundational intervention. In a study that looked at dietary patterns among young adults aged 18 to 34, participants who consumed diets high in ultra-processed foods showed measurably higher levels of systemic inflammatory markers compared to those eating predominantly whole, minimally processed foods. What was particularly striking was that the inflammatory differences showed up even in individuals who had no diagnosed digestive condition, meaning the damage was accumulating quietly, beneath the threshold of symptoms most people would recognize as serious. By the time the gut starts loudly complaining, it has often been whispering for a long time. Fiber is consistently one of the most powerful tools we have here, and research keeps confirming this with almost frustrating regularity. Soluble fiber found in oats, legumes, apples, and flaxseed feeds the beneficial bacteria in your colon that produce short-chain fatty acids, particularly one called butyrate. Butyrate is, in the most direct sense, food for your gut lining cells. It helps maintain the integrity of that screen I mentioned. One study in a clinical nutrition journal found that individuals with higher butyrate-producing bacteria in their gut microbiome showed significantly lower markers of intestinal permeability and systemic inflammation. You are, quite literally, feeding your own defenses every time you choose fiber over processed carbohydrates. And then there is the microbiome itself, that vast community of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms living in your digestive tract. Research has shown that microbial diversity, the sheer variety of different species present, is one of the strongest predictors of gut resilience. A study conducted across multiple countries found that young adults in urbanized, westernized environments had significantly lower microbial diversity than age-matched individuals in regions where traditional plant-rich diets remained common. Lower diversity was associated with higher rates of both digestive and immune dysfunction. The modern diet, rich in sugar, refined grains, and artificial additives, has essentially been narrowing this ecosystem for generations. The good news, and there is real, evidence-backed good news here, is that the gut microbiome is remarkably responsive to dietary change. Unlike some biological systems that take years to shift, The microbial composition of your gut can begin changing within days of altering your diet. A study that introduced fermented foods into participants' diets for 10 weeks found measurable increases in microbial diversity and reductions in inflammatory proteins in the blood. 10 weeks. That's a semester. That's a season. That's a timeline that should feel genuinely motivating. So when your stomach hurts, when your energy crashes after meals, when your skin breaks out in ways that creams never quite fix, when your mood dips for reasons you can't pin down, I want you to consider the possibility that your gut is trying to tell you something that goes beyond digestion. It is connected to your immune system, your nervous system, your mental health, your energy, your skin, your inflammation levels. It is not a separate department. It is the headquarters. Listening to it isn't just about comfort, it's about understanding your body as the connected, communicating system it actually is. And that understanding, that shift in perspective, is where real change begins.